A group of astronauts journey to Mars with the hope of establishing a colony, only to discover that human beings have already set foot on the land before. A farewell celebration is due for the next day departure to Mars. The attending astronauts include Nicholas, notorious for his last-minute daring pursuit of romance, Woody and Blake, a loving married couple set to journey together, Sergei and Renee from abroad, and Phil and Luke, who will embark in 2 distinct crews. Luke anticipates the arrival of Jim, a fellow spaceman, at the party. Luke's wife urges him to have a heart-to-heart with their son Bobby before he departs. Bobby tearfully confesses his fear of missing his father, wondering who will fulfill the nightly book-reading ritual. Luke comforts his son by promising to read the same book in space each night, whilst Bobby follows suit back on Earth, symbolizing a shared reading experience. Jim's arrival at the party is greeted with a warm welcome. A melancholic moment unfolds as Jim, Woody, and Luke's jovial conversation takes a somber turn when Maggie, Jim's deceased wife, is mentioned. The duo nostalgically recalls their shared dream of traveling to Mars, which was cut abruptly short due to Maggie's illness, prompting a sickly, saddened Jim to abandon his Martian aspirations to care for her. Jim's tears flow freely when Luke candidly expresses his pain, stating that the couple deserved the journey more than anyone, but comforts Jim, stating their dreams live on. Fast forward 13 months, the team comprising Luke, Renee, Nick, and Sergei arrives at Mars. Their rover stumbles upon an unusual mountain with a peculiar sheen. Upon analyzing the mountain, they presume it could potentially conceal an ice reservoir underneath. The team excitedly report their findings to the global space station, where Terry, Woody, Phil, and Jim are stationed. They convey their plan to conduct an exploratory mission on this uncanny mountain. Upon reaching the mountain, an eerie signal rings in their headsets. A radar scan reveals that, contrary to their initial ice presumption, the mountain appears to be metallic. Luke dismisses the initial findings as inaccurate and requests a rescan using increased power. The augmented scanning power, however, triggers a burst of energy from the mountain, causing a complete system malfunction in their equipment and the formation of a menacing, entity-like tornado. In a horrifying turn of events, the swirling forces abruptly end Sergei's life. With the calm following a tornado's wrath, an enormous metal visage is unveiled, previously hidden by a mountain. On Earth's space station, an emergency conference is convened, prompted by a powerful energy surge from Mars, followed by an immediate loss of almost all communication channels. They receive a barely discernible video message from a severely wounded Luke, narrating the demise of his crew and an unknown aggressive entity. Woody makes an attempt to persuade the station's commander to deploy a rescue mission for Luke. However, this is met with skepticism due to safety concerns and uncertainty about Luke's survival, especially given the cessation of all messages. Phil, on the other hand, proposes collecting data from a Saturn probe passing close to Mars to plan their mission, which the commander agrees on. Woody convinces the commander that only Jim can steer the ship due to his extensive Mars training and his significant role in creating all the Mars mission layouts alongside Maggie. Despite initial hesitation, the station captain concedes. As the mission unfolds, several months later, the team of Jim, Woody, Terry, and Phil are approaching Mars. They anticipate key information from a Saturn probe set to pass near Mars, while Phil creates DNA from candies, humorously eaten by Jim. The probe's images reveal 3 graves close to the departed team's base camp, leading to speculation about Luke's survival. Although Terry argues it indicated there was no one to bury him, Phil holds out hope. As they examine the location of the previously detected energy pulse still emitting, they run into a technical difficulty with the probe. Abruptly, their ship is bombarded by micrometeoroids, causing significant damage to the hull and rapid air leakage. Unbeknownst to the crew, the fuel tanks also suffer damage. The situation escalates when they begin their descent into Mars's atmosphere, losing fuel rapidly due to the damage. As a result, an explosion engulfs their ship, compelling them to evacuate into space, tethered only by their suits. Their hope is to reach a refueling module in Mars's orbit from prior missions. However, the module is further away than anticipated. Making a daring decision, Woody decides to use up his jetpack's fuel to reach the module with a grappling hook wire. If successful, his teammates can use the wire to reach following him. Despite the risks, he pulls off the risky maneuver, securing the wire. After overshooting his mark, he was deserted in space, out of jetpack fuel. The situation shattered Terry, who insisted they save Woody. However, the harsh reality was understood by Jim and Woody. There was indeed insufficient fuel for a rescue mission. Despite their warnings, Terry attempted the rescue. She attempted to bring Woody back using a grappling gun, but the wire fell short, to the point where Woody had to sacrifice himself to stop her from doing the same out of desperation. Finally, Jim, Terry, and Phil managed to successfully land the refueling module on Mars, making it to the base camp of a previous mission. Most of the equipment was damaged, but not beyond repair, providing them with the potential means for returning home. Surprisingly, they discovered thriving plant life within the experimental greenhouse, a sight that astounded Jim. Often under the impression he was hallucinating, Luke attacked Jim. However, Jim convinced him of reality by mentioning a shared book between him and Luke's son, Bobby. Luke then revealed his survival story, explaining how he relied on the greenhouse for sustenance. The rest of his team had not been as fortunate and perished in an incident. He believed he had survived for a reason, to uncover a secret related to the face on Mars, an unusual formation resembling a human face seen through satellite images. Luke, who had been studying a signal emanating from the face for a year, discovered that it formed a DNA pattern. This pattern, he theorized, was a self-portrait left by an alien race, a declaration of who they were. However, Terry noted that the last pair of chromosomes was missing from the pattern, dismissing the possibility of it being human. While packing for their return journey to Earth, Jim saw some spilled candies that reminded him of his conversation with Phil. He then realized the pattern was not a display of identity, but a test for humans to fill in the missing pair of chromosomes. It became clear to him that Luke's team had been attacked due to their radar waves interfering with the face. In the test, Jim's interpretation was deemed incorrect. He posits that manipulating the radar's radio waves may nudge them towards the correct solution. Though this idea is met with skepticism by his team, Jim persuades them that failure makes the mission pointless and disrespects those who've sacrificed their lives. To proceed with a cautionary approach, they transmit the updated radio waves to the elusive facial structure on Mars via a rover. The applicative transmission projects the correct solution to the genetic enigma. Suddenly, a white passage appears on the Martian surface. Jim, along with Terry and Luke, venture into the novel realm, telling Phil to prepare the return module, regardless of their return. As they penetrate the foreign landscape, they lose communication with Phil but discover that breathing is possible without their helmets. The peculiar environment materializes as a three-dimensional solar system display, revealing Mars as a verdant blue planet. A fascinating narrative unfolds, shedding light on Mars's past inhabitants and their escape to different galaxies following a deadly meteor strike. A solitary crimson creature reveals that one spacecraft was left behind on Mars, its database filled with crucial DNA blueprint. This abandoned spacecraft eventually found its way to Earth, carrying the initial single-cell organisms, marking the birth of life on our planet. Unexpectedly, their link with Phil is revived, warning them of an impending tempest. As they plan their return, they realize that the face-like landmark is none other than a spacecraft readying for departure. Amidst the chaos, Jim decides to stay, convinced that his fate lies in meeting the Martian ancestors. Terry and Luke reluctantly agree, racing against time to reach Phil at the return module. Meanwhile, Jim transitions onto a compact spacecraft, confined into a water-filled compartment. As the water level rises, he fights to hold his breath, only to realize his ability to breathe underwater. As he adjusts to this astonishing reality, he is engrossed in revisiting all corners of his life's journey. Terry, Phil, and Luke are departing the atmosphere of Mars in their journey module. They observe their friend Jim's spaceship breaking into another galaxy. Astonishment and excitement fill the air as Jim, the man who always seemed destined for extraordinary adventures, commences his journey to a new world. Simultaneously, Jim conveys enthusiastically his thoughts to his spouse, Maggie, and his companions. All the while, Luke watches Jim's spacecraft disappear into the unknown, sending his best wishes silently fading with the spaceship.